Jack Ely, don't get upset. I'm not here to hurt you.
Look away.
You know there's a mirror here, right?
What do you want?
Hello, and welcome to Film Rant. I've been waiting a good while for this one, The Nice Guys, directed by, well, that fella who ruined Iron Man, Shane Black. I was excited as a slut in a forest of cocks when this came out, as it looked damn funny and starred my boy Ryan Gosling. I couldn't really tell what was going on with the plot from the trailer, so I was really looking forward to seeing what it was all about. So, is it worth a look? Well, I'm going to tell you in a spoiler mode, so don't watch the review if you're bothered about spoilers or haven't seen the movie yet. The characters section of this review is going to be bigger than a porn star's titties, because my god, the characters are what drove this movie. They are so well realised that you just instantly become fully invested in who they are and you never get bored of seeing them on screen. Russell Crowe plays Jackson Healy, a professional ruffer. No, not like this cute little twat, but the kind of guy who gets paid to beat people up. Ryan Gosling plays Holland March, a private investigator who's cheekier than a Nando's with the lads and takes great joy in ripping people off. We see this instantly when he accepts money off an old lady who clearly has dementia, who asks him to find her husband, who Ryan notices is in an urn on her mantelpiece. Both characters are fairly despicable people, even Gosling's own daughter says he's a terrible person, but they're also tremendously lovable. Russell just wants to matter after his divorce. He just feels like he's all alone without a purpose. Ryan is totally motivated by money and alcohol. He takes any opportunity he can to have a drink or rip people off, often charging extra to reveal more information. Russell is also slightly motivated by money, as we see at the start when Amelia pays him $7 short and he calls her out on it, but money is not the top of his list. Ryan knows how to manipulate people while Russell knows how to rough them up. Even the casting is perfect. You look at the two and ask yourself, right, which one is the rough one and which one is the nice one? I'm pretty sure everyone would get that question right. I mean, clearly Russell Crowe is the best person to cast for the fighter.
Born in New Zealand in 64, a hot-headed actor named Russell Crowe. He loves to act, but he loves one thing more, fighting round the world. He fights his directors and he fights his fans. It's a problem no one understands. If there's two things he loves, it's fighting and fighting round the world. Making movies, making music, and fighting round the world. Russell Crowe.
They go together like a one-night stand and a baby. That's especially interesting given that they're the total opposites of each other. If ever there was a movie to prove the idea of opposites attract, this is it. As well as their motivations, their manner is totally in sync too. Russell is violent physically, but often cares about a person's mental well-being. Often we see Russell telling Ryan not to rip somebody off, or he helps people he sees in need. On the flip side, Ryan is, I suppose you could say, abusive mentally, but not physically. Ryan doesn't care about what he does to people's lives, but he does care about their physical well-being, often telling Russell not to hit somebody or stop killing people. It's not the typical good cop, bad cop either, as neither of them are necessarily good or bad. It's more like physical cop, mental cop. If any of you have ever seen the TV show Minder, a British show that started in the 70s starring Dennis Waterman and George Cole, their relationship is a little like Ryan and Russell's. George Cole is the yuppie wheeler dealer while Dennis Waterman is the muscle, or his minder. You may as well call this movie Marie Curie because the chemistry is just so perfect. In fact, I'm creating a new celebrity couple. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe now become Crosling. Hashtag Crosling, everyone, let's get the word out there. They banter with one another and their performances just complement each other beautifully. I think of it like Russell Crowe's the burger and Ryan is just the cheese and bacon and sauce that tops it all off. These guys have the best chemistry I've seen in a movie since Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum in Jump Street. It would be a crime not to mention Anjuri Rice, who plays Ryan's daughter Holly, no doubt named after Ryan's character Holland. She puts in a very talented performance and was an absolute pleasure to watch, which is surprising given I normally hate child characters. She's funny, she's sassy, and she's actually central to the plot. I really didn't expect that going in. Since this movie isn't owned by Disney, I suspect that this kid is going to have a bright future that isn't riddled with drugs and inevitably going batshit crazy. With regards to the script, I'll say I was very upset at the start because the first character we see is that fucking kid from that shit dinosaur movie that came out last year. What was it called? Jurassic Turd? Jurassic This Is So Bad I Hurled? Oh yeah, Jurassic World. Well, I can safely say that this is the lowest point of The Nice Guys. From then on in, the film is pretty top notch. The Nice Guys keeps you hooked like a chav to heroin for about 75% of it. The movie twists and turns and you really don't know which direction it's headed. It keeps you guessing, which is exactly what you need in a comedy mystery movie. Honestly didn't know what had happened to Amelia or what the fuck was going on with Misty Mountains, but watching Crosling solve it was an absolute joy. That is until they find Amelia and she lets everything out of the bag. I feel like they catch up to her a little too early, so the film ends up showing its titties without enough foreplay. I can't decide if the film is too long so that the events that transpire after Amelia reveals all felt like a bit of a drag now that the mystery element was gone, or if the movie simply just needed to hold all its mystery until the very end. There's scenes where the scene itself is enjoyable to watch from a comedy or character perspective, but didn't seem like it was advancing the plot at all. It's like watching a James Bond movie and all of a sudden we have a 5-minute scene of him making a cup of tea and then having a shit. The section at the porn party was a little too bloated with scenes that didn't advance the story, so at times I was really waiting for the movie to get to the point. It's never boring, don't get us wrong, but it does feel a little overlong and indirect at times. The best film I could compare it to, and a lot of you will probably react like this,
The fuck?
is Hot Fuzz. Yep, Hot Fuzz. That buddy cop film by Edgar Wright starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I say that because Hot Fuzz is a very strange buddy movie where the protagonists find themselves trying to solve a mystery surrounded by strange individuals in a strange place. You never really know what the mystery is all about until half an hour before the end, and the final half an hour is just a bloodbath. The Nice Guys has the same structure in that it's surrounded in mystery, and the final half an hour of it is a big shootout. It's got some strange but great comedy and some wonderfully interesting characters. If you liked Hot Fuzz, while it's not as crazy, you'll definitely love The Nice Guys. There was one part of the movie that made me frown a little. That was when Russell Crowe killed Blueface by choking him. He waits for Holly to run off to find help as Blueface has been run over, and then he just kills him where he lies there helpless. Now, there's a debate in these kinds of movies that constitutes murder. Russell is a guy who beats people up. He's not a hitman, he just gives people messages. Now in media we see murder all the time, especially in action movies. Though we don't really see it as murder because it's usually in self-defense, such as if our protagonist is being shot at or has been set upon by somebody with a weapon. Usually these characters get away with murder in the audience eyes because they feel they had no other choice. The point where it transfers into murder is when that victim is completely defenseless. I mean, take a look at this example from The Walking Dead. Rick and his group have killed a lot of people before this episode in Season 6, but this scene was especially dark because Rick and the group invade this group's compound and savagely stab them in the head in their sleep, while they're utterly defenseless. Look at Rick's face as he kills this defenseless guy. He's visibly sickened because he knows that it's his first true murder. To bring this back to The Nice Guys, we know that Russell Crowe has killed a guy before when he stopped a robbery in a diner. He takes the guy's gun and beats him to death with it, which is a little bit too far, but ultimately I don't think harms his character too much because he did it to save everyone in the diner and himself. It's technically self-defense. With that in mind, I honestly didn't think Crowe's character was that kind of guy that would actually kill anybody. He might want to do it, but there's a big difference between wanting to do it and actually doing it. So it really put me off a little when he just murders Blueface where he lies there in the road defenseless. Sure, he abducted Molly and was shooting at her, but he was still utterly defenseless and broken when Russell caught up to him. Later on in the movie, we see Russell attempt to strangle John Boy at the climax. Holly says, "If you kill that man, I'll never talk to you again," and he stops. It's like Holly's inspiring not to kill, even though I got the impression that he doesn't really want to kill people in the first place. This is highlighted again earlier in the movie when Holly calls him out on Blueface's death and asks if he killed him. He replies with, "No, of course not." Then she replies with, "That's how I know you're a good person." I just feel like Crowe's character would never kill anybody, so I was a little upset that he did. There was one part of the plot that I just couldn't buy, not even with a MasterCard, and that was the idea of the porn movie. We're led to understand that the porn movie made by Amelia and Misty Mountains contained plot elements that were evidence of her mother's hindrance with the catalytic converter case. They planned to release it to the world so that people would see her mother's corruption. The idea that it's a porn movie is meant to be a fuck you to her mother since she's campaigning for anti-porn, so I can get on board with that. What I just can't believe is that the plot of a porn movie would prove the head of Justice Department was doing something she shouldn't be. Firstly, taking notice of the plot in a porn movie is like taking notice of the age restriction on the site it's hosted on. You just never do it. So I don't think people will be paying any attention to the supposed evidence they hid in the plot. Not only that, and I fully appreciate that Shane Black has tried to write a plot that implies that movies can literally change the world, and I'm sure they can to some extent, but a porn movie would just not have that kind of impact. Usually the only way a porn movie could bring down a government official would be if the official was actually in it getting smashed all over. I just can't suspend my disbelief for this part of the movie, so I thought it was a bit silly. It doesn't come close to ruining the movie though. The movie is heavily bolstered by its fantastic comedy. Ryan Gosling fits into a comedy role incredibly well. He surprised me as much as Channing Tatum did in 21 Jump Street. It's not just his comedic delivery and dialogue, but his mannerisms and simple facial expressions were enough to sell the joke most of the time. The movie itself sort of sets up jokes within the movie and gives you the punchline later. Most comedy in movies just come from things that are inherently funny with no explanation needed. However, The Nice Guys uses lots of jokes that would just not make sense out of context. A lot of the time, one of the characters will say something fairly ordinary early in the movie, and then later on they'll reiterate what they said and it'll be played for laughs. That is an example of great writing and direction from Shane Black, so he goes up in my book a little. Another big plus for the comedy comes from the fact that a lot of it is also visual comedy. This seems to be a bit of a dying art, simply telling a joke by an image and not goofy dialogue. Edgar Wright is the absolute king of it, but a great example in The Nice Guys is when Ryan hides behind a car to take cover, only for it to be on a revolving disc, so he's revealed to his enemy without realising. That's some truly great visual comedy. A personal favourite section of mine comes near the end, where Russell Crowe questions on how Ryan has fallen down so many heights and survived, to which he replies, "I think I'm actually invincible. I can't die." The following section then totally runs with that established idea by having ridiculous things save Ryan from death. It was very silly but clever comedy and I loved it. I have just one question from this movie though. Maybe you guys can help me out with it. Was Amelia supernatural or something? She seems to survive falls from ridiculous heights the same way Ryan does. The point where she lands on the roof after coming out of the hotel is the one part that comes to mind. Even Crosling looked dumbfounded as to where she came from and how she survived the fall, yet this is never answered later in the movie. Was there an explanation I was missing, or is it simply never explained? The only aspect I want to mention about the technical side is the pacing. The Nice Guys is fairly fast-paced for 80% of it, with a 20% slowdown coming right in the middle. But that slowdown is well worth it. During the slow section, we get to learn what Russell and Ryan are all about. That's when we discover how much Ryan is motivated by money and that Russell just wants to have a purpose. The moment he describes the diner scene and ends with, "I just felt like I mattered," that was really powerful. That moment really pulled me into him as a person. Without the little slow section, I wouldn't have nearly been as invested in the characters as I ended up being. The Nice Guys is a good movie, but not great. If it didn't have the excellent characters and performances from Crosling and Anjourie, it wouldn't be that good. The plot is interesting up until a point, but reveals itself too early and feels a little stagnant in some parts. The porn movie sting plot element seems a little too hard to believe, and I didn't really like the killing storyline with Russell Crowe's character. However, the movie does have the excellent characters and performances from Crosling and Anjourie, coupled with some brilliantly written comedy moments, which are undoubtedly the movie's highlights. I'd encourage anyone I know to see it simply because it's something different, and I feel everyone has to see the great partnership between Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. And remember, #Crosling everyone. The Nice Guys gets 3.5 frames out of 5. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Film Rant.
People got hurt.
I'm saying I think they died quickly though, so I don't think that they got hurt.
Come on!